عروس که میرفتم سر کار میدم یه عده دوستان میگفتن پسرم مشکل کرده تیر خورده دختر خاله حاملش.
Mr. President, on Iran, you said that the killing has stopped. Who told you that the killings have stopped there? And if it's the Iranian regime?
We have been informed by very important sources on the other side, and they've said the killing has stopped and the executions won't take place. There were supposed to be a lot of executions today, and that the executions won't take place. And we're going to find out. I mean, I'll find out after this. You'll find out. But we've been told on good authority, and I hope it's true. Who knows, right? Who knows?
We've seen the body bags, so how do you trust them?
You've seen that over the last few days, and they said people were shooting at them with guns, and they were shooting back, and it's one of those things. But they told me that there'll be no executions, and so I hope that's true.
2,403 dead. That number is on your screen right now. Yesterday, Trump tweeted, "We won." But in Iran, there's a 26-year-old named Irfan, the same age as your son in college, the same age as your little brother, and this kid was saved from execution with hours to spare. Which one is true? Did Trump win? Or did 2,400 people die for nothing? In this video, I'm answering 3 questions. 1. Why is Trump declaring victory when nobody can verify his claims? 2. Why was the Udeid Air Base evacuated, and what does that have to do with your wallet, your safety, your family? 3. Did Irfan actually survive, or is he still going to die? These answers affect you directly. Because 48 hours ago, while you were scrolling through your phone, while you were complaining about grocery prices, America was on the edge of a full-scale
کرده حتی کسایی که توی اعتراضات نبودن یعنی صرفا توی اون مسیر داشتن میرفتن نه شعاری داده بودن نه هیچی مخصوصا همین خانم حامله‌ای که میگم پسرکی رفته بوده عکاسی از عکاسی داشته برمیگشته و هنوز هم جنازه که تحویل ندادن.
war with Iran, and nobody told you. Breaking news. Right now, as you're watching this, 2,403 people are confirmed dead in Iran. Not soldiers, not militants, not terrorists, protesters, civilians, young people who wanted freedom. They walked into the streets to demand basic human rights, and they never walked out. Their bodies are still being buried. Their families are still screaming. And tonight, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social claiming victory. He said the executions have stopped. He said Iran backed down. He said his maximum pressure campaign worked. But here's the problem that nobody in mainstream media wants to address. Nobody can verify what Trump is saying. Nobody can confirm it. Intelligence agencies are scrambling, diplomats are confused, and the evidence on the ground, the actual documented evidence, tells a completely different story. Why does this matter? Why should you care about what's happening on the other side of the world? Because if Trump is telling the truth, this is the single biggest foreign policy achievement of his entire presidency. But if he's lying, if he's taking credit for something that isn't real, then 2,400 families are grieving for nothing. And you're being manipulated.
پسرم دوستش تیر خورده بوده برگشته دوستش رو نجات بده رگبار بستم بهش 5 تا گلوله خورده بوده همونجا درجا خود کرده بوده ولی گشتن تا جنازه‌اش رو پیدا کردن یه مبلغ زیادی هم مجبور شدن پول بدن حالا من مبلغش رو دقیقا نمیدونم تا که بتونن جنازه رو تحویل بگیرن.
Into believing a victory that doesn't exist. Let me take you back exactly 48 hours, because that's when everything changed and nobody was paying attention. The protests in Iran have been ongoing for months now. You've seen the footage if you've been paying any attention at all. Young women burning their headscarves in the middle of the street. University students standing face to face with armed riot police, carrying nothing but signs and their voices. Families burying their children in unmarked graves because the regime refuses to release the bodies. This is not some fringe movement. This is not a small group of troublemakers causing chaos. This is the largest nationwide uprising Iran has seen since the 1979 revolution. Millions of people in the streets demanding the fall of a regime that has ruled through fear, torture, and public execution for over 4 decades. And how did the regime respond? Exactly how you'd expect a desperate authoritarian government to respond when it feels its grip on power slipping away. Mass arrests. We're talking tens of thousands of people rounded up and thrown into detention facilities. Torture. Documented, verified, photographed torture in facilities that human rights organizations have been tracking for months. And public executions. Not hidden, not secret, public, designed to send a message, designed to terrorize every Iranian citizen into submission. They're not just killing protesters, they're making spectacles out of them, hanging them in public squares where families can watch, broadcasting the executions on state television so every person in the country sees what happens when you challenge the regime. If you're finding this information valuable, if you think more people need to hear this, hit that like button right now. I'm serious. When you like this video, the algorithm pushes it to more people. That's how we break through the mainstream media blackout. That's how we get the truth out there. But something changed this week. Something that caught everyone off guard. Intelligence analysts who have been watching Iran for decades didn't see this coming. Reports started emerging from multiple credible sources that executions were being paused. Prisoners on death row, people who had already been told they were going to die, started getting last-minute reprieves. The machinery of state terror, which had been operating at maximum efficiency for months, grinding through protesters like a meat grinder, suddenly started hesitating, slowing down, stopping. And then Donald Trump took credit. He posted on Truth Social that his maximum pressure campaign had forced the Iranian regime to back down. He said the executions stopped because of him. He said American strength won again. He said the mullahs got scared. And let me be clear about something. If that's actually true, if Trump genuinely pressured Iran into stopping executions, that would be extraordinary. That would be one of the most significant achievements of his presidency. That would vindicate everything he's ever said about dealing with hostile regimes through strength rather than appeasement. But here's where the story takes a turn that mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Because while Trump was posting victory laps on social media, something else was happening. Something that suggests the situation is far more complicated and far more dangerous than anyone is admitting. The Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar was evacuated. Now, if you don't know what Al Udeid is, let me explain why this should terrify you. Al Udeid is not just another military base. It is the single most important American military installation in the entire Middle East. It's the forward headquarters of United States Central Command. On any given day, over 10,000 American military personnel are stationed there. Your neighbors, your friends' kids, maybe someone from your own family. It's the nerve center for every single American military operation in the region. Intelligence gathering, drone strikes, combat coordination, everything runs through Al Udeid. And 48 hours ago, that entire base was evacuated. Not partially. Not just non-essential personnel being moved to safety as a precaution. The entire base, everyone out, operations suspended, aircraft repositioned to secondary locations across the region. And then, just as quickly as it started, the evacuation was reversed. Personnel returned. Operations resumed. Like nothing happened. Why does this matter to you personally? Because Al Udeid is the brain of every Middle East operation America runs. If that base goes dark, your security is compromised. The soldiers stationed there were equipped with your tax dollars. The aircraft there were built with your money. Every single thing at that base exists because you paid for it. And 48 hours ago, all of it was at risk. The Pentagon refused to explain what happened. Official statements were vague, contradictory, and clearly designed to avoid answering any real questions. But sources inside the defense establishment, people with direct knowledge of what actually went down, are telling a very different story. They're saying the evacuation was ordered because of credible, actionable intelligence that Iran was preparing an imminent strike on American forces. Not a hypothetical threat, not a maybe someday warning, imminent. The highest threat category that exists. They're saying this was the most dangerous moment between the United States and Iran since January 2020, when we came within minutes of full-scale war after the Soleimani assassination. Type Irfan in the comments right now. I want to see how many people are actually watching this. I want to see how many people actually care about what's happening to real human beings while politicians play games with the truth. And here's where it gets even more disturbing. Sources are saying that what happened next, what happened during those critical hours while American forces were evacuating, is directly connected to why Trump is now claiming the execution stopped. Something happened in those hours. Some kind of communication, some kind of deal, and nobody is telling the American people what it was. Here's why this affects your daily life. Because if Iran was genuinely preparing to attack American forces and then suddenly reversed course at the last possible second, that means we were standing at the absolute edge of a war that would have devastated the American economy overnight. We're talking about gas prices doubling or tripling within days as oil shipping through the Strait of Hormuz came under threat. We're talking about financial markets crashing, wiping out retirement accounts that families spent decades building. Your 401k, your pension, your savings, gone. We're talking about supply chain disruptions that would have made the pandemic shortages look like a minor inconvenience. We're talking about American troops, somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's husband or wife, being deployed into another Middle Eastern war that could drag on for years and cost trillions of dollars. That's not hypothetical fear-mongering. That's what we were facing 48 hours ago, and you had no idea. Now let me tell you about Irfan Soltani. I need you to remember this name because he puts a human face on everything we're discussing. Irfan Soltani, 26 years old, the exact same age as your son in college, the same age as your younger brother, the same age as your nephew who just graduated. He was a student with his entire life ahead of him. He had dreams, he had plans. He had a family who loved him more than anything in the world. Irfan was arrested during the protests for allegedly attacking a government vehicle. The evidence against him was thin, almost non-existent, based primarily on confessions that human rights organizations say were extracted through torture and physical coercion. The trial lasted less than an hour. The verdict was decided before a single witness testified. And last week, Irfan Soltani was scheduled to be executed. His family had already said goodbye. Can you imagine that? Saying goodbye to your child knowing you'll never see them again? His mother collapsed at the prison gates. Witnesses said she was screaming so loud they could hear her from blocks away, screaming for anyone to help, screaming for God to intervene. His father aged 10 years in a matter of days. His hair turned gray. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. The execution was scheduled for dawn, and then, with just hours to spare, literally hours before they were going to kill him, the execution was stopped. No explanation was given. No official statement was released. Just a last-second reprieve that nobody saw coming and nobody can explain. Now here's what makes this even more significant. Irfan's case is not unique. Human rights organizations monitoring the situation inside Iran have documented dozens of similar cases over the past week alone. Prisoners who were hours away from death suddenly getting postponements. Executions that had been publicly announced, that families had been officially notified about, quietly canceled with no explanation. Something is happening inside the Iranian regime. Something is shifting. But here's the part Trump isn't mentioning in his victory posts. The killing hasn't stopped. The arrests haven't stopped. The torture hasn't stopped. People are still disappearing from their homes in the middle of the night. People are still being beaten in detention facilities. What changed is the public spectacle. The regime is still crushing dissent with overwhelming force. They're just doing it quietly now. away from cameras, away from international attention, in dark cells where no one can document what's happening. Here are 3 pieces of evidence that Trump's victory claim doesn't add up. Number 1. Al-Udeid was evacuated because of an imminent Iranian attack threat. Then suddenly everything reversed after some kind of back-channel communication. That's not pressure working. That's a deal being made. Number 2. The death toll is still climbing. 2,403 confirmed dead, and that number goes up every single day. If the killing stopped, why are people still dying? Number 3. Iranian officials are telling international media that Trump sent a message promising not to attack. If we won, why are we the ones making promises? If you want to know what really happened in those back-channel communications, what Trump actually agreed to, and what it means for your future, stay with me. What I'm about to tell you will change how you see this entire situation. Here's what we know for certain. An Iranian official speaking through intermediaries claimed that Trump sent a message through back channels explicitly stating he would not attack. We know this message allegedly arrived right before the Al-Udeid evacuation was reversed. We know the timing of Trump's victory post coincides almost exactly with this alleged communication. So here's the question that should keep you up at night. If Trump promised not to attack, what did he get in return? A pause in public executions? That's something. I'm not dismissing it. Lives were saved. Irfan is still alive tonight because of whatever happened. But 2,400 people are still dead. The regime is still in power. The Revolutionary Guard is still patrolling the streets with weapons. The protests are still being violently suppressed. And Iran's nuclear program is still advancing. Centrifuges still spinning. Uranium still being enriched. The countdown to a nuclear-armed Iran continues. If this was a deal, what exactly did America win? And what did we give up? Because in diplomacy, nothing is free. Every promise has a price. Every concession has consequences. And right now, nobody is telling the American people what price was paid on their behalf. You went to the grocery store yesterday. You complained about egg prices. You scrolled through social media. You watched some videos. Meanwhile, in Tehran, in Isfahan, in Shiraz, someone Irfan's age was bleeding out on the pavement because they dared to want what you already have. The right to speak freely, the right to live without fear, the right to choose their own government. They died in the streets while you worried about your grocery bill. I'm not saying that to shame you. I'm saying it because you need to understand the connection. Every death in Iran is connected to your life. If dictators win, if authoritarian regimes learn they can crush dissent without consequences, it affects the entire world order. Your gas prices go up. Your investments become unstable. Your children inherit a more dangerous world. This isn't abstract geopolitics. This is your money, your security, your future. The first 100 people who share this video will get access to our exclusive 40-page analysis PDF breaking down the entire Iran situation, the back-channel communications, and what it means for America. Link is in the description. Let's talk about what happens next because this story is nowhere near finished. The protests in Iran are not going to disappear because some executions were paused. The regime's grip on power is weaker than it's been in decades. Maybe weaker than it's ever been since the revolution. The economy is in complete freefall. The currency is nearly worthless. Inflation is destroying middle-class families who used to be the regime's base of support. Young people, who make up the majority of the population, have absolutely nothing left to lose. They've already lost their futures. They've lost their opportunities. They've lost their friends to bullets and nooses. They're going to keep marching until the regime collapses or until every single one of them is dead. If the regime cracks down harder in the coming weeks, if the death toll climbs from 2,400 to 5,000 to 10,000 to 20,000, the pressure for American military intervention will become overwhelming. Hawks in Congress are already demanding action. They want to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. They want to cripple the regime's ability to murder its own citizens. They're using the death toll as moral justification. 2,400 dead. How many more before America acts? But military intervention comes with costs. Real costs that will be paid by real American families. Costs in blood. Costs in trillions of dollars that could have been spent on schools and hospitals and infrastructure. Costs that will burden your children and grandchildren for decades. On the other hand, if we do nothing, if we accept Trump's questionable victory claim and move on to the next news cycle, what message does that send to every dictator watching? It tells them you can murder thousands of your own people, and the worst you'll face is sanctions and angry tweets. It tells the protesters bleeding in Iranian streets that their lives don't actually matter when geopolitical calculations are being made. It tells the next generation of freedom fighters in the next country facing the next uprising that America will not be there when they need us most. I want you to pause right now, just for a second. Let this sink in. 2,403 people are dead. Not statistics, not numbers. Human beings. Young people who had dreams just like you. Students who wanted to become doctors and engineers and teachers. Parents who wanted to watch their children grow up. They died because they wanted freedom. They died believing that if they were brave enough to stand up, the world would stand with them. And right now, at this moment, the President of the United States is claiming victory while their bodies are still being lowered into graves. This isn't about politics. This isn't about parties. This is about who we are as a country. This is about whether American power means anything beyond military force and economic leverage. This is about whether we actually stand for something. So what can you do? I'm not going to pretend there are easy answers. You can't personally stop the Iranian regime from killing people. You can't personally change American foreign policy. But you can refuse to look away. You can share this video with everyone you know. You can demand your representatives in Congress take this seriously. You can make your voice heard. You can make it clear that 2,400 deaths are not acceptable, and that claiming victory while the killing continues is not leadership. The next few weeks are critical. The protests are entering a new and dangerous phase. The regime is desperate, and desperate regimes do desperate things. The decisions made in Washington over the coming days will determine what happens next. Will we stand with the Iranian people? Will we hold their oppressors accountable? Or will we accept a hollow victory and look away while the killing continues in the shadows? I know what I believe. I believe history is watching everything we do right now. I believe 2,400 people did not die so that politicians could score points and move on to the next controversy. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit the notification bell. Share this video with everyone you know, because the mainstream media has already moved on. The algorithm doesn't care about Iranian protesters. The only thing keeping this story alive is people like you who refuse to be silent. Irfan Soltani is still alive tonight. His execution was stopped with hours to spare. His mother got to hold him one more time when she thought she never would again. That's a miracle. But there are hundreds more just like him sitting in cells right now, waiting to find out if they live or die. Their fate depends on whether the world keeps watching. Their fate depends on whether you keep watching. 2,403. Remember that number, because when you wake up tomorrow, it will be higher. And the day after that, higher still. The count keeps climbing until enough people care, until enough people refuse to look away, until the silence that protects the killers is finally broken. I'll see you in the next video, because this is far from over. And if we stop watching now, if we let ourselves get distracted by the next headline, we become part of the silence. We become complicit in everything that happens next. Don't let that happen. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and never forget that 2,400 people died believing the world would stand with them. Don't prove them wrong.